This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Time to talk with Mike Irwin from Pig Trail Nation here on halftime as we get set for a regional final. And Mike, maybe another incredibly long day at Paul Walker Stadium, which would make it 4 of those. How are you doing?
Good. A long day would be good because that's the only way we got a chance to advance. Man, it doesn't look good. I'm looking back at that TCU game, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think they've scored double-digit runs in like 7 of their last 8. But they haven't been doing what they did in that game.
Right.
Nobody's that good all the time. So I don't expect them to score 20 runs again. To me, the only way you advance and win both of those games is, A, they've got to cool off. And then your bats are going to have to be better. You're going to, you look at Arkansas's lineup. You got Josenberger, who's hitting better, but Slavins is in a slump. Borfin's kind of coming and going. Diggs, he comes and goes. Wagner, it's kind of coming and going. And Callie, McLaughlin. Parker Rowland and Bolton have actually been kind of clutch a little bit lately. But if you get a bunch of those guys hitting together, you got a chance because you might have to outscore them. If they score double-digit runs, you got to score double-digit runs maybe. So it's kind of a combination of they cool off a little bit and you got to get hot at the plate.
It is a much different game than the first time these teams played in February because back then the Razorbacks walked 11 batters and couldn't keep the running game. They couldn't deal with the pitch timer in that game. That's the one that felt more like the fluke than yesterday. Because it wasn't a matter of Arkansas batters or pitchers walking a bunch of hitters or allowing a ton of steals. It was power from one specific hitter that's never hit for power in his entire career, and it was just one of those games. I don't even know any other way to put it. But man, I mean, I'd be surprised if there's another fastball on the outside corner to Trey Richardson. I think today you throw inside, and if you hit him, you hit him.
Yeah, over half their runs from that guy. I mean, in terms of what he delivered, that's incredible. You gotta, you can do a best case scenario with what's left pitching wise. Adcock, he might go 3. Morris, he might go 5. If that's a best case, if they did that, that's 8 innings. Then you still got to go with a freshman because Gage Wood, Christian Fouts, and Parker Coyle are the only ones that haven't pitched. So one of them's got to step up. And then if you go to game 2, and there's no particular order on this, but Holland, he might go 3 innings based on what he's thrown so far. Hagen Smith, maybe 4. So then that leaves you with 3 more innings you got to come up with where a freshman has to pitch. So the pitching has got to be better than we typically see it. And again, they've got to hit the baseball consistently. You just can't have holes in your lineup. I mean, there's got to be something where they catch fire. That's the only way I see it. Unless TCU goes completely stone cold, excuse me, and that does sometimes happen when you score 20 runs in a baseball game. Sometimes you cool off a little bit.
Heck, we saw that in the Fayetteville Super Regional against North Carolina State. It was exactly what happened, and that lineup was clicking too. Even going into that Super Regional, they had really hit the ball well in the regional leading into that. It just didn't happen the next 2 days. So you gotta, so often people will say that's baseball, and that's part of it is that teams don't always stay hot, and there's got to be a cutoff point somewhere. And, man, I'd feel the thing, though, for TCU right now, Mike, is that their cutoff point for being as incredibly hot as they are right now, it feels to me like their cutoff point is like 6 or 7 runs. And it's still been difficult for Arkansas to find ways to scratch out the 6 or 7 runs that they would need, even in that situation for this game. And that gets to the heart of what you're saying, is that you still – the Razorback lineup isn't clicking. It's hot and cold, just like most of the big hitters in the lineup. They've been hot and cold and kind of somewhere in the middle, which isn't really going to be able to pull the trick if TCU scores 6 or 7 runs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw that in the elimination game last night. They almost lost that game. Pitching wasn't that bad in that game. It was good, but DVH had his one eye on that game and an eye on the two that he would have to win today. So maybe he leaves Tigert in an inning too long. Maybe he leaves, Zach Morris in. Leaves. Good grief. Will McIntyre in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe should have set him down after 8 because he was incredible in the 8th. And if you saw him in that dugout when they finally pulled him out, I've never seen a guy so exhausted.
I think he was lying down on the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah, he looked like a guy that had run one of those, whatever those things are, where you run and swim and bicycle and do all that crazy stuff. So maybe, he left them in both of those guys maybe in an inning too long, but I understand why he did it. But they had to just kind of eke out the runs that they got. And the home run, by Kendall Diggs decides the game. And he's been in a slump. But you'd like to think you could score more runs in a game like that. If it's one of those where you're scoring 5 or 6 runs, I just don't see. I think the TCU wins.
Mike, before I ask you about college basketball question, I saw where Michael Vick, Larry Fitzgerald, and Terrell Suggs are eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame ballot. If you could only take one of those guys, Mike, Michael Vick, Larry Fitzgerald, Terrell Suggs, who would you take?
Geez, I don't know, Vic, maybe. Those things are so difficult. I'm glad I don't have to vote on stuff like that because you talk about a debate. You finally put somebody in there and you've always got guys left out and people are mad. The same thing like with the selection committee in baseball and basketball and even the college football national championship. Whoever these guys are in the committee, they get in the room and everybody's speculating on why they did this or that. Why'd you vote this way? Why'd you vote that way? I don't get to vote, and I'm glad I don't, man.
But here's one thing I don't understand about this, right? So Dan Hampton is nominated again. Dan Hampton is in Canton. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right.
Was part of one of the greatest defenses in the history of the NFL.
The Chicago Bears.
The 85 Bears. How is Dan Hampton not in the College Football Hall of Fame? Because he had a really good college career, too. It makes no sense to me.
Exactly. But again, you would have to go back and look at who's voting, how did they vote, explain your vote. And if you got into that, I mean, you'd get some interesting responses, I guess. But, I don't know, guys. I've always suspected this, that there are people that are voting on these things that aren't armed with enough information. They just don't. They don't do their research.
I'll tell you what.
If you have that kind of responsibility to vote, to me, you got to research the crap out of what's going on when you vote. You got to know what you're doing.
Every once in a while, and I do want to hear rationale for why you voted for somebody or not. Every once in a while, though, you wish you didn't hear the rationale. And I can't remember the name of the writer who and this was for the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he said he never votes for anybody on the first ballot. And you're like, why? What is the point behind this at all? It makes no sense whatsoever. I think this was the one guy that didn't vote for Griffey.
Jeter, right?
Or Jeter, yeah. It makes no sense whatsoever. What point are you trying to make in this case? It makes no sense. I don't want to hear the rationale sometimes.
But that would be the only way you'd understand why some of the question you asked. That'd be the only way to understand that. And even then, it wouldn't be the explanation you probably would accept. It's just it's fallible. Maybe the answer, guys, is to do artificial intelligence on these things.
That's a great idea. If journalists and copywriters are being replaced by GPT, why can't GPT vote for the Hall of Fame? Let me ask, because I've got it pulled up here on my computer. Let me give it a try here. Sometimes you ask this thing a question and it has no answer for you at all. Go ahead, Matt. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what it thinks of the College Football Hall of Fame. Go ahead.
Mike, I do want to ask you about getting back Devo. How big? I think he could be a first team all. Do they do a preseason all defense of all American? I think he would be on it, but I think that was just as good as anybody is getting a leader back and somebody. You know, whenever you have a team and you have a lot of new faces, they're all going to be looking to somebody he's going about it, and it seems like Devo goes about it the right way.
You just got to have somebody with ties to this team that's been there, and he's been there will be all 4 years now. And there's a glue factor there that you just can't. There's no value that you can place on it. It's just invaluable. You got to have it with all these new guys they've got coming in. It looks good on paper, but we've seen so many times before. You've got to have somebody that ties it all together, and I think it was huge that they got him back. And now they just got one spot open, and we're playing a waiting game on that. And if they get the one guy they want, I don't know, guys. I mean, it looked good last year on paper. It didn't kind of turn out the way they thought. But there will be less reliance. What I like about next fall is you're not relying on true freshmen the way you did last year. And I think that's a good thing. You know, Bay Fall can come in and just be Bay Fall. He doesn't have to sit there and go, hey, can I be a one and done? Whatever. You know, they've got three guys right now that can get the job done. Three bigs. You have four bigs, and then it takes pressure off him. Same thing with Blocker. You know, it takes pressure off him as a guard. So I like what I'm seeing right now with what Muss has done out of the portal.
Yeah, I'm just as much excited about this next year as I was last year, and I like your point, Mike, about having some more upperclassmen and not relying on a lot of true freshmen to play a lot of the minutes. Yeah.
It's also team building time at the Muss household. Did you see the videos and the photos from the party over the weekend?
Yeah, it looked like they were having a good time.
Yeah, I would too. So I told ChatGPT I think Dan Hampton belongs in the College Football Hall of Fame, and the AI bot tells me that's a valid opinion.
Right on. It's like a magic 8-ball. Yeah,
it didn't confirm my thoughts. It just
Ask
says
me again later.
All it did, and this is what you want out of a relationship with somebody, at least validate your opinion. So ChatGPT values the things I'm saying here. It doesn't have an opinion on the matter, because it also reminds me that as an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions. Well, I'll tell you what, in about 5 years, I bet you do.
Quick story about Dan Hampton when we went through that whole thing with Chad Morris, and then Sam Pittman got hired. I had an opportunity to interview him over the phone about that hire, and he made one simple point. He said, we didn't hire a carpetbagger. That's a good thing. And I'm like, carpetbagger? He says, yeah, some outside guy with no ties that just comes in here. And, you know, Pittman had no real ties, but everybody knew that he'd been here as an assistant coach, but he'd always wanted to play here. And I think he understood, you know, that story that Pittman told about coming in here and wanting to get a scholarship at Arkansas, but screwing up and going out with a bunch of guys at night and getting caught by Lou Holtz, and that was the end of his chance. You know, he just made the point. We got to get one of our own in here, somebody that understands the Razorback way of doing things, as opposed to a guy like Chad Morris who had no ties whatsoever and clearly didn't get it.
Well, they did that. They definitely did that. Mike, see you over here at Balm later on today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I hope it's a long day.
I do too. I usually don't begin my days thinking that I'm looking forward to totally falling out in the bed, whatever time it is, but that's the way I'm thinking about it right now.
It's you exactly get some sleep on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. As Weird Al said, I'll be mellow when I'm dead. I plan on staying alive quite a bit longer. Mike Irwin, Pig Trail Nation. Always appreciate him.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.